We don't need baseball, right?
Yeah, I'm glad you put it that way, because that's how I woke up this morning, Bernie. I was like, yeah, the heck with them. We got other things we can do.
And so welcome to the Bernie Show today, 590 The Fan KFNS. We always invite your text messages. In fact, I might request them today because I'm really curious about, as we talk about the lockout, which continues, and, there's already a week peeled off the schedule, the regular season schedule. I'm just, as I put it in something that I wrote on, just for the cute headline, and I'm being facetious. It's not exactly that clever, but at scoopsofdennymac.com, like I put it in a headline, I said, all right, okay, baseball, MLB's canceling games, but how many fans will cancel baseball? And, that's a legitimate question, because I think at times like this, Jim, we all kind of talk tough because we're ticked off and the emotions get us. But in the past, when these labor battles are over, and look, it doesn't happen automatically, and we saw that in 1994, 95, and until Ripken got his thing going, chasing Gehrig, and then we talked about it, recently in 98 with the home run race and all that. But generally, baseball bounces back. The fans might hold out for a while, but then they go back to the ballpark, especially if they're inspired and fired up by something. But I just wonder, I always assume, and I know you do too, I always assume that, it's going to be a really bad outcome for the owners in terms of just taking some damage and them underestimating, how alienated and angry fans are. And so I tend to think like, man, you know what? It's going to be tough getting fans back in the ballpark. And I can't sit here and say, I'm like 100% confident in that. I think there will be some repercussions. There'll be a bit of a hit. But how long will it last? And will it be as major as I sort of anticipate? And I guess a lot of that also has to do with how long this nonsense goes on. What do you think? We expect there to be some repercussions for the owners, and it'll be felt at the ticket window, and maybe with some other things related to sponsorships and group sales and suite rentals and all that stuff. But are we overestimating perhaps how much damage will be done? We talk tough at times like this, but is it really going to be that bad? I don't. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I know. The danger is you and I think a lot alike on certain things, and it's funny that I was thinking of the same thing this morning, in terms of what does this mean and how will this go in terms of the repercussions, and my personal side goes, I hope they feel it in the wallet. That's me. I hope like heck they do. I want that to happen, just so there's something. They go, hey, see what you did, see what you cost yourselves, just to teach some people a lesson. I don't necessarily know 100% it's going to go that way, Bernie. I know we get texts, and I love the texters, and they tell us, you know what, I found some other things to do that happened during the pandemic, and I get that. And I'll be honest, because I'm in the business, it's different. But if I wasn't in the business, I would walk away, because I wasn't necessarily in this business in 94, 95, and I did kind of go, yeah, whatever. You don't want to play games? I'm fine. I don't need to watch it. It's changed again because I'm in the business now. But the reality is, Bernie, and this town is different than others. I will admit that. It's different here than it is in Kansas City, I believe. It's different here than it is in Colorado, because this organization is so entrenched into what St. Louis is during the summer. But I can't take credit for this because I saw this in a tweet, but you're going to tell me that the Cubs and the Cardinals are playing this weekend and you don't have plans and you can go to the ballpark and sit with your buddies and drink beer. You're not going to do that, because that's what you always do.
The temptation will be pretty strong.
Yeah.
Especially if the Cardinals are really good. That has a lot to do with it too.
Yes.
Although they've been really good in the most recent seasons, making the playoffs 3 years in a row, winning the division title in with 91 wins back in 2019. and yet despite a 3-year absence from the playoffs, the 2019 Cardinals that won the division and returned to the postseason had I don't know. I mean, a pretty noticeable number of empty seats for some, well, I think all home postseason games. That was something we've never seen before, and especially after a 3-year absence from the playoffs. So I think the market softened anyway, and I think that 2020, the damage caused by the pandemic, but also the way the players and the owners conducted themselves. And then you also had player protests and everything. Look, and I'm not taking a stand on that. I'm just saying, that will rub some people the wrong way. And I know fans couldn't really get in there as far as 2020. But it wasn't my sense Cardinals fans were very, very happy, overall. And then in 2021, the Cardinals, in fairness to them, they did do better. It wasn't a normal year. The ballpark wasn't open all the way for much of the season, but the Cardinals, compared to other major league franchises, did pretty well. I mean, they weren't in the top 2 or 3. They might have been. I can check during the break. It's not that important. But they still drew more than most. And, again, you got to put a big asterisk next to it because it was not a normal season or normal circumstances. But I do think the market has been softening, and I don't know what's going to change that. We can almost just limit this discussion to St. Louis and the great fans here. And the support is great. I don't want to overstate the fact that overall it has softened a bit. I'm not sure why. That's another thing that leaves me curious. I could see it if you're losing. I could see it if the team stinks and, not making the playoffs. Right. I really, I think everybody after a while kind of would feel that a little bit. But I've been surprised considering the really consistent success of Cardinals baseball. I've been surprised of the softening of the market. It's not a softening of the market that is like, oh my God, it's not like that. But it's just very noticeable, and it's kind of it's very surprising actually. That's all. Yeah. And I'd like to hear some. I'm sorry, Jimmy. I'd like to hear people tell us why. Why they think that is. 855-282-8255. So there you go.
I got some text here that have come in so far. It says, as long as there is youth baseball going on, there will be some interest among those involved in what goes on at the highest level. Okay.
That's good to know.
Yeah. It's a good one. Another text, pretty apathetic about baseball anymore. Interest starting to wane when Manfred started messing with balls, game speed, and so on. Can't cut into their advertising dollar. Greed is not always good. Okay.
And and a couple logs to throw in the fire, but we're not having a raging fire. It's kind of pretty calm, right? At least right now. I can't promise anything.
Just kindling wood.
Right. But I was doing some reading today and, seeing what people were saying, and I came across a couple of things. Like Travis Sawchik from The Score, who, again, he does a really good job on the economics of baseball. And he was talking about, sources that he talks to, and he's got good sources, and it's speculation. It's not as if the deals are done. But his sources tell him that MLB, as soon as this collective bargaining agreement is signed, there's going to be the possibility of some pretty massive revenues, new stuff. He's hearing that MLB will make a deal for streaming rights with either Apple, maybe Peacock. I mean, we don't know for sure. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, a really aggressive streaming platform, right? Which one of the big boys will, one of the big boy streaming sites.
Right.
And then, of course, we don't know what form or when it'll start. We also know gambling revenue is definitely on the way, and that's why major league franchises in this state and in other states that have major league franchises, but where gambling is not yet legal and it needs to be approved by, in effect, the state legislatures. And that's why the Cardinals and the Blues and the Royals and the Chiefs have all been down in Jefferson City lobbying for this. And the Cardinals are already made no secrets about the fact that, they're as soon as gambling becomes legal in the state, presuming that it does, the Cardinals will have a sports book right there at Ballpark Village. So the reason why I'm saying all this stuff is, again, we assume there's going to be a crunch and the owners will feel some pain. And that's why up to this point I've been so surprised that they don't seem to recognize that. But you know what? Maybe they know exactly what they've got coming in from ESPN, their other broadcast partners, maybe a big, huge streaming deal coming in and gambling money coming in. Maybe that's why they have been so arrogant, because they know that there is going to be a tidal wave of revenue coming in again for them that have nothing to do with tickets sold, right?
Yeah.
So I got to say, that's got me thinking about this too. And I'm not like sitting here worrying about this. I'm just saying they're remarkably arrogant, and they really don't seem to care much about being popular or being loved. They're going to stomp the players, and that'll make them happy, and then they'll go on to the next thing. But as businessmen and women, they have got to know that there's some things coming in, that whatever wounds they suffer financially because of a fall in attendance, let's say, they're going to more than make that up in other forms. So maybe that does explain some of the arrogance. And I don't think that that's a cockamamie theory. I think it's a solid theory, but an incomplete theory, because we don't know exactly what's coming in. But I think they do, or they wouldn't be acting like this.
Absolutely, they do. I'm there with you on this, and not to be conspiracy guy, but after what we heard yesterday in the news conference, I really believe, Bernie, and this is my opinion, I'm not trying to put it on anyone, but all that dog and pony show we saw of negotiating into the late night the previous day, that's all a dog and pony show, and that's all it was. They knew there was no way they were going to go to an agreement. Major League Baseball just wasn't going to compromise. They knew that. And all the noise they would put out, we talked, we're still talking, we're going back and forth. They knew right then and there, nothing's happening. They're prepared to miss games. They're prepared to miss more games. I really believe that. And to your point, they know sitting out there, there's the golden goose. And when we get there, we get to have all that to ourselves, boys. Just stand your ground. And this is, don't give anything. Don't give in, because we're all sitting there. I really believe that. It's sad to say, but that's just the way I feel where they're going with this thing. So
a couple things to add to this. There was a really telling quote from Ross Stripling, who former Dodgers pitcher in Toronto. In fact, he's the Blue Jays player rep to the Players Association. Mm-hmm. And he was talking about, and I got to find the quote, and I apologize. He told Sportsnet Canada about that late night meeting where everyone was like, they might be able to close the deal tonight. They're trying to close the deal and all that stuff, like you were talking about. And this is, I believe this 100% what he said. He said it got to be like 12:30 in the morning, and the fine print of their competitive balance tax proposal was stuff we had never seen before. And they were trying to sneak things through us. It was like they think we're dumb baseball players and we get sleepy after midnight or something. He says it's like that stupid football quote, "They are who we thought they were." Stripling continued, "They did exactly what we thought they would do. They pushed us to a deadline that they imposed, and then they tried to sneak some crap by us at the deadline, and we were ready for it. We've been ready for it for 5 years. But then they tried to flip it on us the next day," meaning yesterday, in PR, saying, the players changed their tone, and they tried to make it look like it was our fault. That never happened. Said they never changed their tone. But they're just saying the players recognized it for what it was. The owners wanted to make the appearance that, hey, look at us. We're trying to get this thing done. We're going to go all night long. Hey, we'll go for 2 more days without sleep to get this thing done. But those damn players, they walked away from it. They're the bad guys. I mean, that's basically what their play was. And Stripling called it out perfectly. I was thinking, Jim, let's go back to Monday night and
Yeah.
all of the breathless reporting going on and stuff. After hearing nothing, it's actually funny. After hearing nothing for the longest time, I mean, I don't know whether to say a year, 6 months. I don't know. It never at any point did any of the on the field stuff come up. So the owners are trying to hammer out a deal with the players, and it's down to the wire. And they still had a ways to go with this, competitive balance tax, and there were differences. The differences had closed to a point, but there were some differences. And then all of a sudden, it's some of the real late night reporting. I mean, we knew about the playoffs, and the players agreed to 12, but didn't go to 14. All of a sudden, pitch clocks, banning the shift, and there was something else in there, and I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, like what? You gotta get this CBA hammered out, and it's like you haven't paid any attention whatsoever to the stuff on the field to make the game more entertaining and to speed it up. So all of a sudden you're like throwing that into this. It's already tough to hammer out the deal on the financial part. And so all of a sudden, like at the last minute, like you want the players to agree to like all these on-field changes. It's like without even having a chance to talk about it, the player reps to talk about it with all the other player reps and run it past the players. I mean, you can't do that. They did it, but you can't do that. That's just unrealistic, and it's kind of crazy. As much as I've been saying that, tisk, 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 because baseball has not been taking action on any of this. They talk, but they don't take action. But listen, there are reasonable limits on this kind of thing. I don't see how you rush in there and hurriedly start to cram that stuff in there when everybody's mind at that point, their mind should have been on the finances and nothing else except the financial part, because nothing's going to get done unless you have that. You can circle back once you make a deal on the CBA. You can circle back and then get to work on the on-field stuff as long as you do it in a timely manner. But I thought that was really strange in retrospect, and I didn't. Well, maybe it's not so strange. They were just, as the old saying goes, man, they're throwing everything out there, throwing in the kitchen sink, everything.
Yeah.
That's no way to make a deal.
No, 100%. You just don't throw that in the last. Hey, how about this too? How about that? How about no?
Pitch clock. Pitch clock. How would you like a pitch clock? Hey, we're going to ban the shifts. I got a deal for you. Just like I can hear Manfred and his negotiator just talking real fast, and no one can really understand what they're saying. They're just like motor mouthing it, and just I don't know. It kind of cracks me up. But looking back to yesterday, it's kind of funny with Manfred talking about, the fans are our utmost consideration, and except you basically locked them out.
Yep.
Because they had to cancel their spring training vacations, and a lot of those things are very, very big deals to families and groups, and who've been doing it for years. And I know people, and I'm sure that a lot of our listeners know people, or maybe they've done it themselves, where they use either Florida or Arizona, depending on who the team they love, and it sort of becomes like an annual family reunion. The siblings will fly in, their kids, whatever, and it's a really big deal. I mean, spring training is a wonderful thing for everybody, and they pretty much have wiped that out. And I know of someone had to just really scramble to cancel their planned trip, and sometimes you can't get full refunds and. So when we talk about them locking out the players, they're also locking out the fans, because the fans don't have access. And the fans were greatly inconvenienced in a lot of cases by having a family tradition or just a personal tradition of going to spring training and that becoming maybe their annual vacation. And all of a sudden that's ripped away. They're locked out of that. So they locked out the fans as well, as far as I'm concerned. And now they've taken the first week off the schedule in the regular season. And that's a lockout that also affects not only the fans but the stadium workers, small businesses that are around all of these ballparks. So yeah, I'm glad that Rob Manfred says it's concern about our fans is at the very top of our consideration list. Yeah. He also said something that I wanted to check on. Another one of his whoppers yesterday. Quote, the last 5 years have been very difficult for the league from a revenue perspective. Fact check, even with the 2020 pandemic shortened season, over the 5 years that Manfred referenced to, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Major League Baseball has raked in $43 billion in revenue. Difficult. I mean, you have a 60-game season in the middle of that, and there's no fans in the ballpark because of COVID. And at the end of this 5-year period, even with that financial stress in there, you brought in $43 billion and you're crying? Like,
it's terrible, isn't it?
You're crying? Like as if somehow you guys are just barely getting by? What the hell are they talking about? But there's enough media people that peddle that stuff without challenging it. And, oddly enough, they're I know I harp about this and I need to, it's annoying and I apologize, but I still can't get over how many fans think the owners are right and the players are the bad guy. It is just really weird.
I'm there with you on that. A couple more texts. Bernie, I canceled my trip in October to spring training. I saw this happening after how confrontational it was in 2020.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. That's good.
That.
I mean, that's really smart. I mean, that's a good call. I'm gonna go to that. I'm gonna go to that texter when next time I'm thinking about putting down some money on a sporting event.
No doubt. A couple people have texted and say, Bernie, I did not renew my MLB package this year for MLB.TV and that. I get why. Don't give them your money till they come back.
Speaking of that,
yeah,
I got an email as a subscriber yesterday.
Did you?
It might have been early evening. It doesn't matter when, but it was after the Manfred announcement.
Yes.
And in fact, maybe let me find it, and I'm pretty sure I can do that quickly. And then, famous last words. And then, here we go. And then I can read it to you. And I'm sure some of our listeners got this. So this came in last night at 6:18 p.m. Central. Dear MLB TV subscriber, we are writing to notify you of a material change to your 2021 subscription. Until such time as a new collective bargaining agreement is in effect, we have decided to extend your 2021 MLB TV yearly subscription at no additional cost to you. During this time, you have access to all games from the 2020 and 2021 seasons, as well as exclusive content available only to MLB.TV subscribers. When we have certainty of the date on which 2022 MLB live game content will be available, we will notify you in advance that we will be processing the annual automatic renewal of your subscription. Thank you for your continued support. Now, they had the thing, and I didn't want to feel like fooling with this last night.
Yeah.
Because they weren't going to charge me until games resume.
Correct.
But they had a thing. They had a link. It said, if you would like to cancel your subscription, click here to get started. You can also cancel us by emailing us, blah, 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 blah. So look, man, what does that mean? I doubt that I want to go back and watch some games from 2021, but you never know, right?
Yeah.
So it's a gesture, and I appreciate the gesture, but it's not like, oh, wow, isn't this generous? It's not. I don't appreciate it to that extent, but hey, whatever. At least they're not trying to roll these renewals, these automatic renewals, and they stopped and they showed. At least they showed some ethics with this. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I didn't get that yesterday, and I
see they're taking your money no matter what.
Well,
Jim.
and that's shame on me. I was going to just tell everybody, you can blame me. I did not go back and cancel mine just because I was so busy yesterday. I didn't get around to it, so I'm one of the guilty ones. I will admit.
They've singled you out.
Yes, they have.
They're taking your money. They ain't going to give you any options.
I've been bamboozled again. So